So I have come to the most difficult part of the talk, the implementation of salt reduction program. And we have had excellent speakers right in the beginning, so it's difficult for me to really compete with them, but I have a trump card at the end of my talk. So this is a notice, the warning that was issued in 2023 post-COVID. The WHO sent a notice, news release, saying that all the countries are lagging behind in their salt control program. Only 5 of them were really on track, and most 73% were out of track. And of course, India was also, because the attention was on COVID for the couple of years prior, and the non-communicable disease took a backbench. So what they recommended is most important thing, if you see in WHO's recommendation, or rather it's common sense. Reformulation. Reformulation of what we are eating now. So there is reformulation, could be at the level of house, it could be at the level of the food manufacturer, it could be at the level of restaurants, everywhere. What you require is to first know the knowledge. Have a knowledge that salt reduction is required. Then you have to look at reformulating the food so that people will accept it. So that's the first and foremost thing, is reformulating foodstuff to contain less salts and set up targets. Each country should have its own target. What should be the salt reduction program? I'll show you the example of UK. UK is one of the world leaders in bringing down salt reduction, and we'll have a look at it shortly. So establishing public food procurement policies. So you'll find we have, for example, like hospitals, schools, workshop, midday meals, all these places, we have to reformulate the food. You would remember during the COVID, there was a news item saying that the railways are going to get rid of fresh food and serve only packed food. From Sapiens Foundation, we could fortunately get a contact to the railway minister, and we wrote a letter to him saying that that will be a drastically retrograde step to serve packed foods. And the railways traditionally have been serving fresh food. You go on the train, you'll always find the food is fresh, unlike the airlines. So then, fortunately, the railway minister, they agreed on it, and still the railways continue fresh food, except now we find again in the super fast trains like Vande Bharat, preserved food is being served. Again, this is another area which we have been trying to get in touch with them. So, labeling. I'll elaborate a little on labeling, how labeling can make a difference. There are issues in this country. I'll go back. Of course, behavior changes. In the mass media campaign, which should continue to go on. It can never stop. The campaign against salt consumption, excess salt consumption should always be there. And today's program is also an example of that. So how do we reduce the salt? This was the target which was put in UK in 2005. In 2005, average person was consuming 12 grams of salt per day. So they set a target of the WHO, said that we should aim to come down to 5 grams. So look at various points, added salt while cooking salt, how do we reduce 60%? Most important again for them was food industry. I'll show you, because the Englishman's food is bread for breakfast, bread for lunch, bread for dinner. So they attacked the bread for the salt content. So the public health campaign. So we have to educate the people that salt is a chronic poison that slowly affects you. It doesn't affect immediately. Krishna Kumar was telling today that he had pistachios. Probably there are short-term acute effects also, but basically chronic effects. So it's a chronic slow poison. So it's like arsenic, which was used in those days historically by the queen to kill the king. Arsenic, they wouldn't know. Arsenic used to be mixed, and somebody would have continuous diarrhea, and ultimately the king would pass away. But arsenic poisoning is well reported. So similar to that, salt is a poison, slow poison. We are taking it every day. And you start it at the age of 10, and you land up in your death at the age of 50. You get a stroke or a heart attack. Then you say, oh, I was so good, and still it happened. So chronic poison, they have to remove it. Use less salt and avoid less salted products. All of us know schools, communities, continuous TV, radio, internet, media, they can all be used. Salt added by industry is the most important but most challenging. Take it from me. Writing to food industries and asking them to reformulate their food with low salt is very, very difficult. They will not do it. Every industry is worried that salt is allowing their product to sell. There is a strong commercial interest, and they feel the taste is because of the salt. They would not agree easily to reduce salt in their products. And of course, avoid processed food, eating out. You cannot prevent people from eating out. So restaurants, again, you have to reformulate the food in a restaurant. The restaurant man. See, when you eat a South Indian diet, it's very difficult to reduce salt. The idli batter, the dosa batter is already prepared beforehand. So the salt is already added. I can't ask for a low salt food. At the most, I may avoid a salt shaker, I may avoid a pickle. But you will still eat the chutney, you will still eat the sambar, you will still eat the food. So it all contains pre-prepared salt. North Indian food, there is a little advantage. You can, when you order, they go and prepare. You can tell them, please add less salt. You may escape a bit. So nowadays, I try to eat North Indian food when possible so that I can reduce the salt consumption. Of course, tax on salt is again, as I said right in the beginning of my talk, you like an electric vehicle, if you are going to use a low salt preparation, give them discounts on the GST. So that maybe the government can consider on tax on salt. So who is responsible? Everybody is responsible. Public is responsible. First, you have to be responsible for yourself. Your health depends on you. You can't say government will take care of my health, my doctor will take care of my health. That doesn't work. You should be responsible for your own health. Obviously, government is responsible. On certain areas, you will see that food labeling is essentially a government part. Taxation can be government. Large-scale procurements all come under government. The food industry is the most important thing, of course. Now, I'll go, before going on this label, let's go to the label in India. This is a label which I picked up only a couple of days. A famous bread, preparation. You will find the first and foremost thing in labels, sodium is not mandatory. There is no mention of salt at all. They mention about energy, protein, carbohydrate, sugar. I don't know what a layman will understand in all this. Nothing. And secondly, many of them have food labels where the print is very small. I have to carry a lens to study it. So it is illegibly printed, small print, and it has nobody understands what is the value of all this. So that is the print. And supposing if we add this print label is meant only for people who can read English. Now what happens to people who cannot read English? The country has a large population who can't read English. They would want in their own language. What do you interpret in my language? For example, what do you write for sodium in Tamil? And if I write sodium in Tamil, what does it convey? Or you write sodium in Hindi, what does it convey? So this label system in India is a very complicated issue. There are lots of issues. Then we go back to the previous slide, you will understand. The label in the UK. Now, here they have the traffic signal labeling. Very clear, red, yellow, green. This foodstuff for three important things. For sugars, fat, saturated, and salt. So you know this product has too much of fat. This has too much of salt. Just put a color. Red, yellow, and green. If it is green, it is safe. So this is much better. The other one you can do is put in your product like this. All the leading brands abroad have a low salt substitute available for them. You go and want to have a lay chips, you will find normal salted, low salted. You want to have something else, any product, standard product. In India, I have never found that. Go to the supermarket. Have you ever seen packed food says low salt or no salt? No. You are not given a choice. You are given a choice maybe in milk, 2%, 4%, 1%. What is it given in salt? There's no sugar, you are given some chance. You know, artificial sugar that is added, yes, sugar substitute, but not for salt. So this is very important. Whereas abroad, every supermarket you go there, you will find this. You land up in the Heathrow airport, there is a company called Popadox, which is manufacturing the snacks, chips from Chennai. And they are marketing it in UK. And in UK, they have a low salted preparation. I asked them to make it in India. They said, sorry, sir, the market in India is very poor. We won't be able to sell. This is our venture. We got hold of a food manufacturer. So we give it in all our functions. Today also you will have it in your bag, a low salt. So what we have done is don't explain what is the quantity of salt. That label, forget the label, put a stamp, low salt. At least somebody will say, oh, look at it, and say, I will eat a low salted food. Hidden salt in food. As I said, it's the best measure that you can do is to food industry. If food industry comes down on salt, the health of this country or the world is going to improve. So I think the targeting food industry, we wrote, I'll come back to this, we wrote to 300 food manufacturers in India, asking them to reduce the salt intake in their food products. Only 2 of them answered. 298 did not answer. Hindustan Lever and Nestle answered. Nestle said, we are coming down, and in the next couple of months, they came down on the instant noodle by 10% of their salt content. Hindustan Lever wrote a long letter to me explaining what measures they are taking to keep the salt under control. We'll skip some of them. So what is most important, the UK experience was incremental. Set a target, and every year or every 3 years, you revisit and change the target. And you start reducing progressively. Don't do it overnight. Overnight, people are not going to understand. For example, in the bread, they slowly brought down every year the salt level by few percentage. So by the end of 5 years, they were less by 25%, but the average Englishman did not know that the salt has come down in the bread. He thought the bread is tasting the same. So that's what they achieved, because they took up bread, because bread is the staple diet for the Englishman. Even now in the schools in UK, so the food is served to children without salt. Yeah, so they set up targets. This is the bread, as I told you, how they brought it down progressively. This I tried locally also in my club. We have brought down the salt content by 10%. We have had no objections from anybody. Nobody even knows that the salt has been reduced, and they're all happy with the whatever bread that's being served. So this is all UK example, just to show how they saved the cardiovascular projections, showing that so much of healthcare billions have been saved on it by a simple measure of reducing salt in bread. So worldwide actions. Several countries have actions. Quite a few have mandatory laws, but others have voluntary, and India is supposed to be voluntary. We are just growing on this. I think there is some ICMR bulletin that has come out now, Eat Right, or whatever, Manika can correct me. It says, makes a mention about reducing the salt intake. So you have all these countries have, several countries. You will be surprised, even Middle East, everywhere you have salt reduction program now. New York, in the restaurant, the New York mayor said that high salted items should have a red stamp. So in a restaurant menus, they made it compulsory that if it is high in salt, put a, like you have a green for vegetarian, you have some other color for, red for non-veg, and for salt, high salt, you should put one. Singapore has measures now. Of course, the latest is the one, the publication is still just come in July 2024. Monica sent to me. The doctor, the nephrologist from, similar to us, a nephrologist who started a program in 2012 in Thailand. And they have been very successful. But they have partnered with food manufacturers, they have partnered with important people in the society and the government. And they have now a program in Thailand where they have several low salt network achievements. This is the letter to Hindustan Lever. They answered back, so I've still kept it with me. And this is what we have been doing for years. We started our program in 2010. We started with the Salt March in the Marina with Andrew Simpkins, who was the US Consul General, and famous actor Crazy Mohan. Similarly, we had a walkathon in Pondicherry. That's where Murugesan, I got him involved with somebody. And we had in Trichy also. And of course, we have posters. We have celebrities talking about eating less salt and the myths. And of course, these are all about salt again. We have several documentaries and videos which we have made, and New Year resolution to remove the salt shaker. We have approached several restaurants in Chennai, and they have been very receptive. We said that you should not keep the salt shaker on the table. Please give it only when the customer asks for it. Otherwise, you know, as the soup is served, people talk to each other and just go on adding salt in it without even tasting it. So it's but just because it's available free, it's always used. So, so you have to remove the salt shaker from this thing. And of course, we have a street place. We go to lower socioeconomic strata, not to misunderstand that hypertension is a disease of the rich alone. The poor also have very high blood pressures, and the poor eat a lot of salt. Actually, they add salt while cooking because they cannot afford vegetables or meat. They add salt in the rice, and they eat that, you know, with pickles or anything like that. So they all consume a lot of salt. So we have these street plays. And of course, our last one is our trump card, which I told you right in the beginning, which has given us the maximum exposure to the population in several lakhs. We have been able to educate on salt.
So இப்போ உப்பை பற்றி எதாவது இப்போ சொன்னேன், நிறைய பேசக்கூடாது, எல்லாம் பேசிட்டாங்க. என்னுடைய பர்சனல் எக்ஸ்பீரியன்ஸ் அது வந்து நான் சொல்கிறேன். ஒன்றும் இல்லை, நிறைய ஆல்கோஹால் போட்டால் லிவர் பாதிக்கும். நிறைய தம் அடித்தா, சிகரெட் அடித்தா லங்ஸ் மட்டும் பாதிக்கும். ரொம்ப வந்து ஹை ஃப்ரைடு ஐட்டம்ஸ், நிறைய ஆயில் ஐட்டம்ஸ், ஃபேட்டி ஐட்டம்ஸ் ஆட்டா ஹார்ட் வந்து அஃபெக்ட் பண்ணும். ஆனால் உப்பு கிடையாது. உப்பு ஜாஸ்தி ஆச்சுன்னா எல்லாருக்கும் அஃபெக்ட் பண்ணும். இந்த உப்புக்கு வந்து அவ்வளோ வந்து ஒரு பவர் இருக்குது. அதே மாதிரி இப்போ சொன்ன மாதிரி சாப்பாடில் வந்துட்டு காரம், அது இது மசாலா கிசாலா ஆயில் கீழ் எல்லாம் என்ன போட்டால் கூட கொஞ்சம் உப்பு போட்டால் அதெல்லாம் போயிடும். உப்பு மட்டும் தான் தெரியும். ஸோ ஒரு மேரேஜுக்கு வந்து அங்கே மிஸ்ஸஸ் போயிருந்தாங்க. போயிட்டு சாப்பாடு சூப்பராக இருந்ததான். யார் அது சமையல்காரன்னு கேட்டிருக்காங்க. அவர் நாராயணன் சொல்லிட்டு பேர். நம்ம வீட்டுக்கு அப்போ வந்து குக்கில் யாரோ வந்து இருந்த குக்கு வந்து இல்லை, அவர் வந்து ஏதோ உடம்பு சரியில்லை. நம்ம வீட்டுக்கு வந்து குக்கா வர்றீங்களா? சரி, வந்து ஒரு குக்கு வந்து நம்ம வீட்டுக்கு வந்துட்டாங்க. சூப்பராக சமைக்கிறாங்க, செம்ம டேஸ்ட். இப்படியே வந்து சாப்பிட்டுட்டு இருக்கோம். பட் ரெண்டு பேருக்கும் வந்து பிபி ஏறிட்டே இருக்கு. என்னடான்னு பார்க்குறோம், டாக்டர் இது எல்லாம் டெஸ்ட் பண்ணுறோம். என்ன பார்த்தோம்னா பிபி என்னடா இது, பிபி ஏறிட்டு இருக்கு, ரெண்டு பேருக்கு ஏறிட்டே இருக்கு. அதுக்கப்புறம் ஒரு ஃப்ரெண்டு, நம்ம நல்ல ஃப்ரெண்டு வந்து இருக்காங்க, அவங்கள வந்து சாப்பாடு வீட்டில் கூப்பிட்டுருந்தேன். ஸோ சாப்பாடு சாப்பிட்டு எப்படி இருக்குது சாப்பாடுன்னு சொன்னால் மற்றவங்களும் சாப்பிட்ருக்காங்க. பட் வந்து உப்பு ஜாஸ்தியாக இருக்குது, ஆயில் ஜாஸ்தியாக இருக்குது அப்படின்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. இல்லை, நல்லா இருக்குன்னு சொல்லிட்டு அப்புறம் பேசிக்குவாங்க. எங்கள் ஃப்ரெண்டாக மூஞ்சி மேலேயே சொல்லிட்டாங்க, என்ன இவ்வளோ உப்பு இருக்குது, இவ்வளோ ஆயில் இருக்குது, எப்படி சாப்பிட்றீங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்லி இப்படியே வருஷக்கணக்காக சாப்பிட்டுட்டு இருக்கோம் நம்ம வந்து. அதுக்கப்புறம் உடனே கூப்பிட்டு அது சேஞ்ச் பண்ணி அதுக்கப்புறம் தான் பிபிஎல்லாம் கம்மியாச்சு. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி சமையல் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கும்போது நீங்களே வந்து உப்பு அதை பழகிட்டு வந்து அந்த பழகுன பிறகு இப்படி தான் செய்யுங்க இருக்கும். மற்றவங்க அப்போ தான் தெரியும்.